Well, we're going to look at John 8:31 this evening. If you have your Bibles, you can turn there. We'll be looking at a number of scriptures, so we won't dwell on one of these. But if you want to turn to John 8:31. John 8:31, it says, "Then Jesus said to those Jews who believed in him, 'If you abide in my word, you are my disciples indeed, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.'" So Jesus said, "If you abide in my word, you are my disciples indeed." And then if you abide in my word, then implying the next verse, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." You shall know the truth, and the truth is what is going to make you free. In John 17, verse 15, again, Jesus says, "I do not pray that you should take them out of the world, but that you should keep them from the evil one. They are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. Sanctify them," he's praying for his disciples, praying for those that will believe on him. "Sanctify them by your truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, I also have sent them into the world. And for their sakes I sanctify myself, that they also may be sanctified by the truth." So verse 17 said, "Sanctify them by your truth," or set them apart by your truth. Your word is truth. And then in the second part of verse 19, he said that they also may be sanctified or set apart by the truth. John 14, verse 6, Jesus said, Jesus said to him, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." So Jesus, number of statements here. He said, "The truth shall make you free." He said, "Sanctify them," talking about the disciples, talking about those who believe, "by your truth." Sanctify them by your truth. Your word is truth. And then here, Jesus said, "I am the truth." I'm going to read a few more verses. We're going to read a lot, but just before we say a few more things. John 1:1, a lot of these verses, they're all in John to begin with. John 1:1 says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." In the beginning, talking about the creation, talking about, well, from the very beginning, before even creation. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, the Word was God, talking about Jesus. A few verses later, in verse 14, it says, "The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And we beheld the glory," or beheld his glory, "the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth." So here it says, in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God, and then in verse 14, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. So talking about Jesus. So Jesus is the truth. He is the Word. Jesus is the Word manifested in the flesh. So the Word of God, the truth, is manifested in the man, Jesus Christ, who's 100% God, who's 100% man. He stands the right hand of the Father, identified with mankind forever, but he's truth. And the way that we are going to be made free, the way that we're going to be set apart, is by the truth, which is by the Word of God, which is by Jesus. It's not by any other way. It's not by any other philosophy. It's going to be by the Word. The Word and the truth is what's going to make us free. Okay? It's going to make us truly free, the Word. No pill is going to make us free. No going to participate in any activity is going to make us free. No hobby is going to make us free. No relationship human relationship is going to make us free. No amount of money is going to make us free. No job is going to make us free. No education is going to make us free. No diet is going to make us free. No exercise regimen is going to make us free. No amount of fame is going to make us free. No certain number of friends on Facebook or Instagram or followers, on Instagram or whatever. What do they have on Snap? They just connect. What are they called? There's friends? Friends, okay. Followers on you name it. None of that is going to make you free. In fact, that's the problem, is that people think something out in the distance is going to, if I get here, if this happens, I'm going to be free, and then it happens, and then they're more bound than ever, because if that didn't make them free. At least somebody that, hasn't arrived in certain areas, at least they can think that if they got to this certain area that it would make them free. But if you get to certain places that you saw off on the horizon, and like a mirage, you get there and you realize that didn't make you any happier, that's a bad place to be. You ever wonder? There's certain people, they look like they have everything, and next thing you know, they've committed suicide, or they've blown up their life, because you can't find freedom in anything but the Lord Jesus. Period. So specifically, I want to talk about this freedom we're talking about, the truth making us free. There's one part it's going to impact, and that is our thought life. If our thought life is wrong, then our believing, by definition, is going to be wrong. And if our believing is wrong, everything we say is going to be wrong, and our actions are going to be wrong. So it doesn't matter. We can try to do external things, but if we're thinking a certain way, perceiving life a certain way, and that would be apart from the truth, anything, if we perceive life and process events in life and process our situation and process those around us and process our job situation and any other situation apart from the truth, we're actually going to be bound. We may not know it, but it starts here. It doesn't matter if we have the truth staring us in the face, if we still don't compute up here and we're looking at a situation and we're thinking wrong about it, we'll still get the wrong result. And the only way we'll be truly free is for the truth to actually impact us, and it starts with our understanding. Because if we don't understand correctly, our behavior and everything afterwards is going to be wrong. Isaiah 55:8-9, it says, talking about God speaking, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are my ways, nor are your ways my ways, says the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." Now, we don't have to take that as just, God's out there nebulous, you just can't understand him. He's given us his word, so we can understand what he's given us. We can understand truth. We're not going to understand everything, as far as we don't know everything. We're going to be for eternity learning and growing and knowing. God has a major head start on us. He's been around forever. And so we're just little babies in his sight. Any of you compared to a little toddler is that gap is much too small to represent the gap between God and us. I don't care if you're 110, looking at a 2-year-old, 3-year-old is just, that's a very tiny gap compared to the difference between us and God the Father, who has been around forever. So he knows everything. We're going to be learning and growing. We're not going to know as he knows. The Bible says when we will. Right now we see as through a glass darkly, the King James says, but we'll see face to face. We'll know some things that we don't know when we're out of this realm, but we can know what the Word says to us. We can know the truth that the Bible tells us. So it's not like we just don't know and you never know what God's going to do. We know God's going to do what he said in his word he's going to do. We know that. And so the more we know of the truth, the more we know about his ways, the more we know about his thoughts. They are higher than ours, but we can come up. As Christians, we don't have to be like, well, I just don't know God. We don't know. He's so far above. Yes, he's God. Yes, we glorify him. Yes, he's awesome. But he's given us some truth that he expects us to come up in and to know. And we can act on that truth. And then we can come to situations and circumstances in the world and see those through what he said. And when we come to a situation and we look at it the way he would look at it, well, that'll change everything. If we look at it according to truth, we're looking at it correctly. Anything else is incorrect. Anything else is going to have some degree of distortion, some degree of misunderstanding, some degree of error, which will not lead us to where we actually want to be. But when we come, the more we can change our thoughts to be like his thoughts, then when we as we go through life, we can walk truly, we can walk straighter and straighter. More peace, more joy, more victory, more strength. Why? Because our understanding is filled with his thoughts. Our understanding is filled with the truth. Our understanding is filled with the Word. Our understanding is filled with Jesus. Is filled with the way he would look at it. So the root of the way we're dealing with any situation in our life, the answer is to know the truth, which will set us free. Truth impacting our minds so that we can think right about it, so then we can act right and we can walk through it right. And we can have victory. That's the crux. That's the critical place, is that we need to understand and think like God thinks. Ephesians 4:20. It says, "But you have not so learned Christ, if indeed you have heard him and have been taught by him, as the truth is in Jesus, that you put off concerning your former conduct the old man which grows corrupt according to the deceitful lusts, and be renewed in the spirit of your mind." Be renewed in the spirit of your mind. "And that you put on the new man which was created according to God in true righteousness and holiness." So verse 23 says that you be renewed in the spirit of your mind, that you renew your thinking, that you change the way we are thinking. We've all been programmed to a degree. Well, we've been programmed. I mean, we've been programmed to a degree in different areas by different sources to some degree, for better or for worse, in our life. Now, I have a degree in computer engineering, background in software, was in the industry for a long time, so this is something I can very much relate to. We've all been programmed by our experiences, by what's been put into us. When we come into the world, we're a spirit. As a person, we're a spirit. We have a soul, mind, will, and emotions, and we live in a body. So when you come into the world, you're a clean slate. Yeah. But even before, when we're in our mother's womb, we're being programmed. The experiences, the voices we hear, we're already being programmed. And then our upbringing and relationships and school and all types of inputs are inputting information into our brain, affecting our mind, affecting our emotions, affecting how we act. We see patterns, we act them out, but that all stems from how we think. So after time, and especially after years of hearing certain things and thinking certain ways and seeing situations and maybe seeing patterns in other people and seeing reactions, those things become deeply embedded in the way we perceive the world. So we see a situation unfold and automatically we're perceiving it a certain way. And that's all in our thought life. It may not be anywhere near what is actually true, but it's the way we perceive it. And to us, it is true. But how many of you know we can perceive wrong? And we could interpret things wrong because we've been programmed a certain way, and we've now owned it, and that, whether we know it or not, there are thoughts that are going through our minds, even maybe unconsciously, as we go through life, that we're interpreting life by. And so as that happens, we could be in a situation, we're perceiving it, and maybe it's a negative connotation. We're perceiving it in a negative fashion. We think somebody doesn't like us, or this situation's going to go bad. And actually, it could be 100% the other way. Somebody does like us. We're getting set up for a promotion or whatever. But because of negative thoughts, we could look at it completely wrong. We could be completely incorrect in our assessment, but it stems from the way we perceive and maybe past experiences, whatever. And so then we act on those things that are wrong, and situations can go in a very bad way, and didn't have to, and it wasn't actually based on fact at all. It could go in any number of directions, but the more that we come to align with the way God sees, the way His truth would assess a situation, then we have the ability to navigate those situations the way He would. Do you realize that we could come into a situation, think wrong about it, and actually be cutting off God's help, even though He's there and He wants a certain outcome, but because we see it a certain way, we can't even see the solution and that He could help us. And even though He's right there, He hasn't gone anywhere. He's there to help. He is actually wanting to help, but we are seeing it like this. We can't see that He could help. We don't see any way out, so we go through it. And then people go as far to say, where was God? Well, God didn't go anywhere. If we know what the Word says, then we can walk through situations with Him. But anything we deal with in life, any situation that we are having a difficulty in, at least some of the problem is stemming from the way we see it. It's stemming from our thinking. Because the closer we would walk like Jesus would walk, and the closer we would walk in truth, then we could walk out of the situation the way He would walk out of the situation in victory. In other words, if we thought that the Lord were standing next to us, because in the Spirit, or the person of the Holy Spirit, He is in us and with us. If we were in a situation and we could just think of, if Jesus were standing next to me, what would He do? Would He be able to go through? Would He be able to get to the other side? Well, then we would have the answer to get through, to get out, to get on to the other side. Before we go on, John 16:12 says this, I still have many things to say to you, this is Jesus, but you cannot bear them now. However, when He, the Spirit of truth, has come, He will guide you into all truth. For He will not speak on His own authority, but whatever He hears, He will speak, and He will tell you things to come. When the Spirit of truth has come, He will guide you into all truth. Well, that's the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit has come. That is the Spirit of Jesus. And so as a Christian, we have access to the one that can guide us into all truth. He's going to guide us by the Word of God, and He's going to guide us by our Spirit, but it will always be in line with the Word of God. But He can always, the more that we're in line with truth, in walking out situations, the more we're going to have victory and we're going to be able to overcome. Let's look at another one, 2 Timothy 2, verse 23. 2 Timothy 2:23, I want you to see something specifically in this. Verse 23 says, but avoid foolish and ignorant disputes, knowing that they generate strife, and a servant of the Lord must not quarrel, but be gentle to all, able to teach, patient, in humility correcting those who are in opposition, if God perhaps will grant them repentance, so that they may know the truth, and that they may come to their senses and escape the snare of the devil, having been taken captive by him to do his will. So this is specifically talking about somebody, servant of the Lord, being able to deal with somebody that's in opposition. But notice this part in verse 25, in humility correcting those who are in opposition, if God perhaps will grant them repentance so that they may know the truth. In other words, they don't see the truth. In other words, they're acting based on something that's not truth so that they're actually captive. Verse 26 says that they may come to their senses and escape the snare of the devil, having been taken captive by him to do his will. So we do have an enemy. He has influenced this world, and so we've been programmed by things. Maybe if you're in this world, you've been at least influenced some by this world. And so there are things that are going to affect us and keep us from seeing the truth. Here it's talking about that God can help people to see the truth so that they can be set free. And so as we see more of the truth, that we can come to our senses, see the truth in a situation, and then walk out the truth in our circumstance. It is, again, how we perceive situations. Look at Matthew 14:13. This is an example. Matthew 14:13. It says, when Jesus heard it, he departed from there by boat to a deserted place by himself. But when the multitudes heard it, they followed him on foot from the cities. And when Jesus went out, he saw a great multitude and was moved with compassion for them and healed their sick. When it was evening, his disciples came to him, saying, this is a deserted place, and the hour is already late. Send the multitudes away that they may go into the villages and buy themselves food. Verse 16, but Jesus said to them, they do not need to go away. You give them something to eat. And they said to him, we have here only 5 loaves and 2 fish. So notice what's going on. They've been ministering, Jesus has been ministering to all these people, 5,000 people it says later. And his disciples say, hey, it's late, send the people away so they can go get something to eat. That's how they're seeing the situation. They're saying there's all these people. They need something to eat, therefore they have to go send them away. And Jesus says to them, they don't need to go away. You give them something to eat. Now, this is not occurring to them. They're like, say what? See, this is not, their thinking is not aligned with Jesus' thinking, is not aligned to what God can do and is actually about to do and is willing to do. They are saying, here's the situation, here's the solution. Based on what? Based on the way they understand, based on the way they see, based on the way they think, based on their assessment and perception of the situation. They do not see another way out. They say, there's a lot of people here. They need to go get food. Why? There's no other way. Then Jesus says they don't need to go away. You give them something to eat. They're not seeing that that's a possibility. They're not saying, how? You could think, how are we going to do that? Verse 17, we have here only 5 loaves and 2 fish. What are they saying? There's no way. We don't have enough food. See, this is all we have. Good idea, except we don't have any food. So, next discussion point. Verse 18, and he said, bring them here to me, the food. Then he commanded the multitudes to sit down on the grass, and he took the 5 loaves and 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he blessed and broke and gave the loaves to the disciples, and the disciples gave to the multitudes. So they all ate and were filled, and they took up 12 baskets full of fragments that remained. Now those who had eaten were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. So 5,000 men, and then the women and children. So what happened? They brought these to Jesus, the 5 loaves and 2 fish. He broke and gave the loaves to the disciples, and the disciples gave to the multitudes, and everybody ate and were filled, and then they have 12 baskets full of fragments. Disciples did not see that coming. That just wasn't in their perception. That was not in their thought. When they're looking at this situation, there was like, I'm out. I don't see any other way to do this. And Jesus, though, had another way. His thinking was so much higher than theirs in this situation. So they didn't see the possibility. Let's look at Matthew 15:32. Another, just chapter later in Matthew, another situation very similar. Verse 32, now Jesus called his disciples to himself and said, I have compassion on the multitude because they have now continued with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. And I do not want to send them away hungry, lest they faint on the way. Then his disciples came to him. Where could we get enough, or his disciples said to him, where could we get enough bread in the wilderness to fill such a great multitude? They're like, yeah, again, and keep in mind, this is after the other situation happened. So we laugh. Sometimes we're not super quick to grasp on to God's truth. Thank God he's so patient and merciful and good, and he just bears with us. They'll get it. They'll get it. But these guys saw Jesus literally feed 5,000 people, and their first thought is not, he just did this. Hey, what do you want to do? What did they say? Where could we get enough bread in the wilderness to fill such a great multitude? We had 5 loaves and 2 fish before we did it. That's not their thought. Their thinking has not been renewed. Their thinking has not been changed. They are looking at this. It kind of looks like the same way they were just a little bit ago. They could have changed their mind, but that's where they're at right now. Verse 34, Jesus said to them, how many loaves do you have? They said 7 and a few little fish. Verse 35, so he commanded the multitude to sit down on the ground. He took the 7 loaves and the fish and gave thanks, broke them and gave them to his disciples. The disciples gave to the multitude. So they all ate and were filled, and they took up 7 large baskets full of fragments that were left. Now those who ate were 4,000 men besides women and children. And he sent away the multitude, got in the boat, and came to the region of Magdala. So another situation. Similar, very similar outcome, very similar sequence of events. But the point is that the disciples, their perception was incorrect. Their perception was not aligned with God. The way they saw it determined how they were going to process this situation, not what actually could have been done, was going to be done, what Jesus had in mind. They're looking at it through a limited point of view, a limited perspective that's not aligned with God, and so they were going to be walking out the situation from that perspective, but God had something else in mind. Jesus had something else in mind that was higher than the way they were thinking. Let's look at another place in Numbers 13. So we want to just be conscious of the fact that our thought process is going to affect how we act and how we react in any situation. And if we're having an issue in an area, we ought to look back and say, how am I looking at this? If I'm stressed, if I'm out of peace, if I'm angry, am I looking at this right? Am I looking at it the way God would? In Numbers 13, verse 1, it says, then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the children of Israel. From each tribe of their fathers you shall send 1 man, every one a leader among them. So Moses sent them from the wilderness of Paran, according to the command of the Lord. All of these men were heads of the children of Israel. So Moses is sending them in to spy out the land. So then they went in, looked at the land, got some of the produce of the land. And so in verse 26, now they departed and came back to Moses and Aaron and the congregation of the children of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh, they brought back word to them and to all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. Okay, so they came back, they've spied out the land, and they're bringing back the fruit of the land. Then they told him and said, we went to the land where you sent us. It truly flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. Nevertheless, the people who dwell in the land are strong, the cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, the Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the banks of the Jordan. So they say the land is flowing with milk and honey. There is great fruit. It is an amazing land, but the people are very strong there. We saw the sons of the descendants of Anak there who are giants. We saw all these other peoples there, and they're basically saying, it's too much for us. Yes, it's an awesome land, but we're not able to do anything about it. And this is the report they're giving. This is their perception. This is the way they're thinking. Let alone the fact that God told them that this is the land that they were giving them, which is why Moses was sending them to go spy out the land. So God has already told them this is the land that he's giving them, but they see it and they are not thinking like God. They're not thinking in line with him. They're thinking totally by what they see, and some what they're not seeing. They're looking at it in a very negative way, and they're bringing back that report. So verse 30, then Caleb quieted the people before Moses, because they're all starting to get upset, and said, let us go up at once and take possession, for we are well able to overcome it. So Caleb comes and he's trying to quiet the people, and he said, he saw the same thing that these people saw, but he says something else. He said, we're well able. We're well able to overcome this. He sees differently than the other people. He's seeing the same thing, but his mindset is completely different. The one are saying, we can't do it. They're too strong. It's a great land, but we can't do it. And Caleb is saying, let's go now. Let's go up now. We can do it. Verse 31, but the men who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. And they gave the children of Israel a bad report of the land which they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone as spies is a land that devours its inhabitants. And all the peoples whom we saw in it are men of great stature. There we saw the giants, the descendants of Anak came from the giants, and we were like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in their sight. So this is the way they saw it. They were thinking, their perception was absolutely incorrect, because these people, when this generation ended up dying off, they didn't go in to the land. But Caleb and Joshua did go into the land. And when they did, the people were afraid of them. So it wasn't because of the giants, and it wasn't because they were so strong. It was these people's perception of what it was going on that was defeating them. Their lack of believing God and their lack of thinking like God, that's what defeated them, not the actual people, not the circumstance. The circumstance did not defeat them. Their perception of the circumstance is what defeated them. Let's look at just the next chapter, Numbers 14. It says, so all the congregation lifted up their voices and cried, and the people wept that night. So now everybody is upset. Why? Because they're thinking wrong. And all the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron. The whole congregation said to them, if we had only died in the land of Egypt, or if we had died in the wilderness, why has the Lord brought us to this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and children should become victims? Would it not have been better for us to return to Egypt? So they said to one another, let us select a leader and return to Egypt. So now what they're doing and saying is all based on their perception, which is false. They are ready to take Moses out. They're ready to get another leader. They're ready to go back to Egypt, which is crazy. They're ready. They are completely distraught. They are mad at God, and it's all because they are looking at the situation incorrectly. It is not even true. Caleb's right. Caleb sees right. He sees that God is with us and we can go over. Let's go up right now because we're going to have the victory. And he is right. He is acting according to what God said, and he is thinking like God, so the possibility of victory is before him. Whereas these other guys, God is actually for them, but they are cutting off the hand of God and not allowing God to do what he wants, and they are actually arguing against God. Why? Because of their thinking, because their thoughts do not line up with what God said. Their thoughts are not truth. The truth would make them free. If they would listen to Caleb and Joshua right now, they could be free, and the whole story would have been different. But as it was, all these people died. They just wandered around the wilderness till they died. They never were able to go in. Verse 5, so then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. But Joshua, the son of Nun, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had spied out the land, tore their clothes, and they spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, the land we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, then he will bring us into this land and give it to us, a land which flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord. Do not fear the people of the land, for they are our bread. Their protection has departed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them. He is saying they are bread for us. They are nothing. They're a piece of cake. We can take them out right now. God is on our side. Let's do it. Let's not rebel against God. Let's go. And he has the path of victory out before him. He sees past what he can see because his thinking is aligned with the Lord. And both paths were possible that day. It all is how the one group of people are thinking wrong. They're thinking there is no way. These people are too strong. There's no way we can overcome them. And Joshua and Caleb are thinking right. They're thinking we have God Almighty on our side. He already told us he was given this. We will have it if we go up. Let's go. And they could have listened to that. They could have gone on. In every situation that we come up in our life, doesn't have to be a huge situation. Could just be something at work. Could be, a situation with our family. It's the same way. How we look at it, and if we let truth dominate us, or we let fear and thinking that is not aligned with the Word of God, will determine what we have. And it's all how we see it. It's not the reality. Now I'm going to close with this. So you guys know what this is? It's a Rubik's Cube S thing. So I'm just going to mess it up. I'm not going to put it back together if you think that I'm going to show my skills. That's not what I'm doing. There was a time I could do something with this. But when you see this, people in this room and people online, you could have different reactions to just seeing this. This has been around for a long time. I think it's almost 50 years. I don't know. I was in the store, and it was like a 50th anniversary of these things. So I don't know. They're close to that. So people have seen these. And based on your background and where you come from and have seen, this could elicit different reactions. You could look at it and go, what is that? You could look at it and go, okay, it's a puzzle. I get it. How in the world do you put that back together? And it looks like it could be impossible. But we know this is not impossible. And we know there are ways to do this. I used to mess with this, for a while and could do it okay. But there are people in the world that can do this over and over under 6 seconds. And when I was trying to do this, and there's an easy method to get going here. There's only so fast you can do it physically with that method. You can get, to where you're probably 30, 40 seconds. That's it. It's physically impossible to do it faster. After that, you have to change the way you think, and you have to do something different to get it faster. And then there's a whole other tier. This is the way it is with a lot of stuff, right? Then there's a whole nother tier of people that go beyond that, and to get it really like in the single digits, they have to think completely different. They have to memorize certain algorithms to be able to do it. So the current world record to do this, does anybody know how fast it is? It's 3.13 seconds. And the current average, I think it's 4.5 or 6 for they do have them do 5 of them, and they cut off the high and low, is like 4.5 seconds. When the guy that did it in 3.13 seconds, because they put it before him, and they have their hands down, and for it to count as a record, it has to be an official sanctioned event and everything. He shaved off, I can't remember how much off the previous world record. It was like 0.3 or 0.4, a lot relatively. They look at the cube, and they're looking at it, and they're looking for patterns in the way it looks, and he recognized that it was scrambled in a way that all he had to do is just do a few moves and it would be done. And he picked it up, ding, 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 put it down. And he's a world record holder. Now and those type of people, that have done all that, they look at something like this, and they don't look at it like you and me. They look at it, and they can see the different patterns in it, and they know the moves that need to happen in order for this thing to become completely solved in a matter of seconds. Whereas you and me, and maybe there's somebody out here that I know Julia did it for a while, and but nobody, if you can do it under 10 seconds, raise your hand. Okay, because I don't know anybody personally that can do that. There are people, even 20 seconds, they look at it completely different. They look at it, and to them, they're looking at patterns and their way of solving it, and this is not intimidating whatsoever to them. In fact, it's fun. It's a challenge, and they do 4x4s and 5x5s and 6x6s and 7. They love doing this stuff, and they look at it and going, ooh, a challenge, I can do that. And they'll pick it up, put it down, it's a few seconds later, and it's solved. People like you and I can look at it, and without looking at a bunch of moves, we're looking at it going, I don't know how I could ever solve that thing. But we know it's possible. And that is exactly the way it is with situations in our life. When we look at it, we can look at it and say, this looks impossible. There is no way I see that. It's like the disciples looking at all those people and saying, there's no way, let's go. There's no way we can go get enough food. Can't do it. They did that twice. There's these, the Israelites, when they went to spy out the land, they're like, there's no way we can take it. But Caleb and Joshua were going, oh, yes, we can. We can do it now. Right. We can go take it out now. We'll knock them out tonight. See, they looked at it completely different. They looked at it from God's perspective, and to them, that's just like somebody looking at it going, I can do that in 5 seconds. You call that a challenge? I can do it. Well, if we'll change our mind, there are things in our life, circumstances in our life that are actually could be solved in hours, days, weeks. If we think like the Lord, then it can all be changed. If we think like, well, I just don't have God, I don't know, I'm thinking completely, I'm rebelling against God, I'm thinking there's no way, and I side in with that, then we can sit there and stare at that same problem, and all we're doing is like, it's there today, it's there tomorrow, there's just no way, I don't see any way out, and all it does is to just stay the same, and we're not moving anywhere toward the solution. But if we'll change our mind to sync up with what God has said, then He is able to change anything in our lives for the better. And by our changing our thinking, we'll see our situations different. He's able. And not only is He able, He wants us to walk according to His thoughts, because it'll make everything right, smooth, peaceful. He's faithful.